Hey, what's up, guys? Another episode of the Armchair Crew Chief, and we have a lot to unpack. We have a lot of news, and we had some racing that once again spilled over into Monday. So we've had 4 races this season finish Monday. But let's go ahead and dive into everything first. So trucks were not racing. We're going to go into Xfinity racing. So we'll start off with, as we normally do, qualifying. We'll tell you the top 5. Starting at 5 going to 1, we had Riley Hurst, Sam Mayer, Austin Hill, Justin Allgaier, Josh Berry got the pole. So diving into that, this race, unfortunately I wasn't able to fully watch it. I got to listen to it on the radio, but this thing was just mired in cautions at the beginning of the race. I mean, caution after caution. John Hunter Nemechek, Ty Gibbs, who was running this race, they all got into a incident, we'll say, and we had quite a few people. I mean, we were looking at, let's see how many people finish. Surprisingly, didn't look like too much, but so we had Kyle Weatherman did not finish the race, Connor Mosack, Mason Maggio, and Sammy Smith. And some of these guys got into some contact and able to start running around. We had Ross Chastain also running this as a Cup regular. Overall, it was, like I said, it was mired in cautions all through the beginning of the first 2 stages of the race. I mean, if you looked at that little bar that Fox had that NASCAR's continued on, it was yellow more than green. So we had, we had a lot of hiccups there. I think Ty Gibbs got into a couple people. John Hunter got into somebody towards the end of the race. He was floating towards the back in between the stages. Sammy Smith got hit into the wall. Carson Hocevar had some issues. He finished 2 laps down. And so overall it was, I don't know. It seemed like it was, if you liked a wreckfest, the beginning of the race was great for you. Moving forward, it kind of cleared out. Now, unfortunately, going towards the end, before I get ahead of myself, so let's go ahead and talk about stage winners. We had Allgaier, Berry, Custer, Chandler Smith, and Riley Hurst was your top 5. I mean, these guys ran strong. Allgaier seemed like he was just getting away from the pack and running with it. I mean, stage 2, John Hunter came back. So, as I was saying, that stage 1, he was kind of sitting back after his little accident. Then a couple other guys got spun around, more cautions. And then, he was able to work his way back. Ty Gibbs was up there. Riley Hurst, Austin Hill were your top 5 with Justin Allgaier second. The end of the race, our top 10 from 10 to 1, Jeb Burton, Parker Retzlaff, Parker Kligerman, Ross Chastain, Riley Hurst, Sam Mayer, Ty Gibbs, Brandon Jones. This is probably one of his best finishes of the season. Josh Berry and John Hunter got the win. And it was kind of crazy because whenever I started listening to it, he was sitting towards the back because of that incident that he had with Ty Gibbs. And it just, it was interesting to see. And, it's good to see him come back up. I'm not a big fan of him anymore, but, he came out and won the race, started from the back, essentially, once all these restarts happened in the first stage. So you're asking where Justin Allgaier was, because he was up there a lot. He was kind of handling his own. He got spun around with, I think Ty Gibbs spun him around on the pit road. So unfortunately, that kind of hurt him. Josh Berry struggled with his car the whole time, but he was able to come out with a second place finish. So overall, I thought Allgaier was going to take this race. I mean, he won the first stage. Slow pit stop hurt him, and then he had contact, as I was saying, at the end of stage 2. He had contact with Ty Gibbs at the end. Spun him around, and I mean, it kind of took the win away from him. I don't know if he would have had he was climbing up there, but I don't know if he would have had the car to get all the way up there, similar to what we saw in the Cup Series. But yeah, that's what happened there. Everybody passed inspections. As I was saying, Ross Chastain finished in this race. He ended up getting a top 10 or close to the top 10. But yeah. So anyway, that's the end of the race. We have 3 more races to go, including this Sunday. So let's go ahead and take a look at the playoff standings here. We'll start with regular season. So with that win Saturday, John Hunter bumps up to 5 wins, and Austin Hill's at 4. And then you go into Cole Custer has 2 wins, and the rest of the guys, Justin Allgaier, Sam Mayer, Chandler Smith, Sammy Smith, they all have 1 win. So John Hunter he's tied with Austin Hill right now for the regular season. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. We have 2 road courses coming, and then we have Daytona. So anything can happen with this, especially how close these guys are. And then Justin Allgaier is only 34 points back from that number 1 spot. With the wins, they put John Hunter first. And, that's what happens. But, I mean, if you look at everything, yeah, the wins should count more. Austin Hill has more top 5s. They have the same amount of top 10s. John Hunter has 2 DNFs, 2 Hills, 1. So, but he also has 5 more stage wins, John Hunter does. So it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward with this and how this will play out. I think it'll be a good battle that probably won't be talked about for who gets those extra playoff points going into the playoffs after Daytona. And, it's going to be interesting to see what happens, in my opinion. So if we go ahead and look at the playoffs for Cup Series, we have the top 12 make it in. So we already know our winners are in: John Hunter, Austin Hill, Cole Custer, Justin Allgaier, Chandler Smith, Sam Mayer, Sammy Smith, Jeb Burton. Josh Berry looks like he's going to make it in on points. He's 126 points to the good. Daniel Hemrick, Sheldon Creed, Riley Herbst are the guys that are fighting for everything right now. It'll be interesting to see what happens. And we'll go from there. We got Parker Kligerman on the outside looking in. He is sitting at negative 18 points below 18 points below the coin line. I think he's going to be one of the only ones that can jump in. But, I mean, we can't discredit Brandon Jones because he's only 45 points out and we have 3 races going on. I don't see a Brett Moffitt getting in there. I really only see maybe Sheldon Creed getting bumped out and Parker Kligerman getting in, or Brandon Jones sliding in. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. Again, we have road courses, so you never know. We might have somebody that hasn't won yet come out and win. It's the road courses, as long as they are there, that you're going to have your question marks because you're going to have AJ Allmendinger run them. So, I mean, if he wins, he nullifies a win. But, we're looking at 4 guys, 3 that are closer to the bubble than Josh Berry that could potentially get knocked out if we have 3 new winners. So, I mean, it is a possibility. Is it going to happen? I don't know. It's Xfinity is a little bit tougher to tell because you have a lot of the guys coming in and out from Cup Series running. But then I feel like, their racing is tighter, and I think these guys, I think this car will allow for not as many different winners as we've had. So let's go ahead and move on. We're going to move on to the Cup Series. As we were talking about before, Cup Series, it was one of those things that they delayed the start, and then then we had a red flag, I think, in between. Got back in the cars, and then they came out and ran for a while. I think we almost got halfway. I think it was like 71 laps, and 100 was halfway. And they called the race and said that we're going to do it Monday. So we go and look at qualifying. We will look at our top 5. We'll actually look at a top 10 here. So Chase Elliott looked like he was going to have a strong showing. He finished 10th in qualifying. Then Blaney, Kyle Busch, William Byron, Joey Logano, Martin Truex Jr., Chris Buescher, Ty Gibbs, Ross Chastain, and Christopher Bell. So Christopher Bell got the pole. It was kind of surprising to see a lot of Toyotas out there, in my opinion, because this is one of those races that Ford seems to have a strong handle on. I think the last manufacturer to win this outside of Ford was Chevrolet, and if I remember correctly, that was the 42 car piloted by Kyle Larson. So that shows you how long ago that was. We're talking pre-COVID. I think it was like 17, to be honest. I don't quote me on that. So going into everything, going into our stages, Bubba Wallace had a strong run. Ty Gibbs came out and ran well. Martin Truex Jr. My goodness, that car was fast. And, it's just amazing when you hear the outcome of what happened. But, that car was fast. We had some guys get into the wall here. Kyle Busch, he got loose. He was racing. I call that one a racing incident. He got loose and he kind of got spun and hit the wall and he couldn't finish on. And same thing, Chase Elliott, he had a tire go down. Tire went down and, that kicked him out, which is a big major role player going forward that we'll talk about when we get into the points. Because unlike Denny Hamlin, I still think that, Denny probably changes his tune now, but Denny came out last week and said that, I think Chase can make it on points. And I don't know what in the world he's thinking. That's just nonsense. But anyway, let's get him back into the race. So Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott got knocked out. We going into the second stage. It was, I think it was some good racing towards the back. Nobody could touch Martin. Martin came in and pitted, and he ran the field. I think he was up like 12, 13 spots. He came back and actually won this race, won the stage. Suarez kind of gave him a little run for the money, blocked him, almost like put him up in the wall, sort of, just trying to be protective. I think he was more mirror driving than anything. But, Keselowski was up there. Again, Bubba Wallace was up there. He had a strong running in the first two stages. But in this stage is where we had that break where we started it on Sunday and finished it on Monday. And in between that start, you see Ryan Blaney, once they threw the red flag and they said, we're going to postpone everything, you see Ryan Blaney come out, and him and Corey LaJoie they didn't see eye to eye. I think Blaney thought he was kind of pushing him up and things like that. But, I don't know. It looked like a racing incident. And, LaJoie being the person that he is, he was like, hey, I got to do better. I got to learn better from these. I'm not used to running up there with these guys, and they're not used to me running up there. So when I kind of dumb that down, they're like, I don't know how I run. They don't know how I run. And I don't know how they run. So you see that right there with that conversation. Ryan Blaney was more heated, I think, than Corey LaJoie because of the incident. But then again, I go back to that, and I think, LaJoie has the talent. As many people say that he does not have the talent, that dude has not had the cars. And don't give me this, he was in Chase's car for one stinking race. He doesn't know the team. They don't know how to set up the car. They don't know how he operates. So you cannot take that one sample and put it in there and saying, he got better equipment, he can't run. So, Corey LaJoie, I think he is an outstanding driver. I think if he had really good equipment, Spire kind of steps it up, especially with, you got Legacy leaving Chevrolet, which will kind of put some tinfoil hats on that later on going forward. But you have Legacy leaving Chevrolet. Maybe Spire can get a little bit more hit on everything. And I think that Corey LaJoie can actually hang. He's hanging with these guys. He's running up there, and he's showing he can be there. And for these guys, you got to remember, too, these fans, you got to remember Corey was out there, wiping the field whenever him, Chase, Blaney, I think Bubba was out there with them, too, when they were all together in the lower levels. And I'm not talking so much Xfinity, but I'm talking like trucks and even further back before their Cup Series in NASCAR career started. Corey was out there running. He just took a different path. I think if he was there at the time of everything, maybe he would have gotten a better ride, or we would see him do better. I don't know. I don't want to put so much on Spire because I think Spire's trying to do better, but they are a smaller team. They are not Hendrick. They are not RCR. They are not, they're hanging out there with JTG and, or JTD. I don't know. I think Corey's a lot better racer than people think, and they just kind of shrug him off because he's with Spire and he can't get anything. I mean, that dude did not come up with daddy's money. Yeah, his dad runs Joyous Seating, but you didn't see Joyous Seating all over that thing. He worked his butt off to get there. He was out there whenever he was with the 32 team. I can't remember the name of that team. But he was out there, you know, when they were scavenging parts, getting old parts before we switched over to the new car and just fighting. So, I mean, that's where his mantra of stacking pennies comes from. And I think he's, again, and I sound like a broken record, but I think he's a better driver than a lot of people think. I think if you give him an opportunity, either give him a bigger sample size and better equipment, I think he'll do better. But Blaney's done stuff like this, even with the Joy, where they'll run him up and they don't think much of it. And they're just like, you know, because I hate to say this to Blaney because I like Blaney. I think he's a good racer, but I think some of these guys think they're holier than thou. And, you know, these lower guys, they get a chance to sniff up the front of the race and get a taste of it. And they might slip or the equipment might fail. And then they're like, oh, these guys don't deserve it. These need, you know. So anyway, I digress. Stage 2 in, Truex, I mean, he was on a different, a different strategy than everybody else. Him and Denny were kind of close to that different strategy. To give you an idea, and then Denny had to pit towards the back or restart or something happened to him. Denny Hamlin, he got 11th from like 20th, I think it was. And then you had Truex just run the field. And, I mean, from that point, everybody's like, man, this guy is the car of the beat. They're going to win this race. It's going to be crazy. And then you get into the third stage, and you see them up there. So when they red flagged at the end of at the middle of the second stage, Truex was 5th. And then going on to the third stage, he was hovering around there. He was leading. I think they came in and pitted. Buescher, Reddick, they stayed out, which some people might have questioned whether or not Truex should have stayed out. He had the fuel to keep going. It's hard to tell because tire fall off in Michigan is not like not like any of these other tracks where it drops off after like 5 laps. I mean, during practice, these guys are running 15 laps, and the 15th lap was the fastest. So it didn't have his tire fall off like we've seen at other tracks. So it's interesting to see what happens with that going forward. So, yeah, they had the pits. Maybe I think what happened and what messed Truex up, and he could have actually, and if you haven't figured it out yet, he didn't win the race. Chris Buescher won the race, so he went back-to-back. Congratulations to Chris. I mean, he fought off, and he raced Truex, and they were going back and forth. Buescher, when you're out in clean air, and I'm kind of quoted Truex, but not really. When you're out in clean air, it's hard to pass the leader. They didn't have anybody near him that he could use to kind of just push them, not so much push them, but like take advantage of open spaces around the cars. Truex in traffic was absolute the fastest car. If there was more traffic, I think Truex wins this race. Since they kind of got spread out more, Buescher, I mean, to his credit, he held it off and he won. And we had another Ford in victory lane. But just going forward with that, he, you know, I don't know what the best way to say this was, but, you know, I think what screwed up Truex was Tyler Reddick. And they'll probably go back, and I think 2311 gets into some of the same meetings as JGR, and they're going to see that because Truex was getting called into the pits, and then next thing you know, Reddick kind of spins around, and they thought the caution was coming out, so they're like, stay out. He slammed on his brakes, came out, and went forward, and he lost 2 seconds on his lead to Denny in the third stage, where he could have came in the pit, and that was 2 more seconds that he could have gotten and had more time to fight Buescher at the beginning. Buescher, I think, would have came out on front anyway, and it would have had to have been Truex passing Buescher, but I think it would have been a little bit easier if that gap was smaller than it was. But anyway, I think that had to deal with that. When we go into that, the Reddick thing, he had the lug got stuck, didn't come out of the gun. I don't know what happened. He almost had a wheel come off, and that's what caused it. And just the expletives, and rightfully so for Reddick, that happened. So that pit stop was 2 tires, and they had to wait on fuel. And that's the point that got everybody ticked off, that they didn't go back and fix it because they're waiting on fuel. So they had ample amount of time that they don't normally have to work on this car, and they just let it go. And you could see the confusion when you watch it on TV in the pit crew, and he got loose and he came in. Luckily they saved it. I think they fought it, but I mean, that's what ruined Reddick. Usually it's, the driver on pit road and maybe a slow stop. This was just, I don't know what it was. It was a breakdown of mental capacity, for lack of a better wording on this, that caused Reddick, because he was running up there 1-2 with Chris Buescher, and they pulled away from Truex. I mean, they had a 6-second gap between Truex. So with that being said, if Reddick was still up there, who knows what would have happened. I think it would have been between Truex, Buescher, and Reddick. Denny Hamlin was too far back to even be in the conversation. He finished third. Keselowski sixth. I'm looking at his number. Fourth. But this is a big thing because we had quite a few other people that wrecked out. Josh Berry wrecked out. William Byron, he hit the DVP. He couldn't go back out there. Bowman had an issue. So, that right there is big if you think about it, because Byron, Hamlin, and Truex were sitting there fighting for the regular season. As we talked about before on this podcast, regular season is very important, especially in Cup Series, whenever you're up there at the front and you're running closer. So we'll see what happens. I think Elliott's done. He's got to win. He's got to win at the 2 road courses, or catch a lucky rabbit's foot out there at Daytona. Because unlike what Denny, and I was saying this beforehand if you listen to this podcast, but Denny came out and said, they're going to come out here, and I think he can make it in points. I think he's going to do it. He's only 60 points below the cut line. Like, no, that's not going to happen, bub. I'm sorry. And, I've been saying that for a while there, unfortunately. And people want to say, I had somebody say that Denny's saying that because he said something to get a racing incident to get Chase suspended 1 race. I think it was Chase broken leg snowboarding that hurt him. So that's what happened. And unfortunately, Chase, I don't think you're making the playoffs. You're going to get your popular driver again. So, you can hang your hat on that one. So let's go ahead and look at regular season standings here. We only really care about the top 3 because those are the ones fighting so much. And honestly, now it seems like it's only the top 2. So we're looking at Truex. He gained on his lead. He is now 57 points ahead of Denny Hamlin. William Byron, just because of his DNF, he's down 96 points below Truex. So I don't see him making it and winning the regular season. I think it's going to be Truex is to win unless he gets wrecked out. And the only place I can see him getting wrecked out would be Daytona. But then again, Indianapolis road course has been one of those that's been just a mess ever since, with the turtles coming out the first time they race there. So it's going to be a headache. So let's go ahead and bump over into our playoff ranking. They have now put Martin Truex Jr. ahead of William Byron. Everywhere else has Byron ahead of Truex, but he's only up there by 2 playoff points. And I say that because I think what they're doing on NASCAR's website is they're going ahead and awarding the regular season standings and wins. So that would put Truex ahead of Byron. But whenever you look at it, not even thinking about regular season championship, Byron's in the lead. He's only up there by, I think he's got 22 points, playoff points. Truex has got 20 points. So his 2 stage wins helped him out. His finishing where he finished in second in the race doesn't help him with playoffs, but that helps him with regular season. And then moving forward, I mean, we have Denny Hamlin after those guys, Kyle Busch, Larson, Chastain, Bell, Buescher, Reddick, Blaney, Logano. And then Ricky Stenhouse is sitting there at 14th. And in between 12th and 14th, you have Keselowski and Harvick. Both those guys are going to make it in on points. We're talking 180 and 168. And then you have Bubba Wallace, Ty Gibbs. They are there now 16th, 17th, and 18th. My goodness. That is tight. Excuse me. We have Ty Gibbs only 3 points to the good. McDowell sitting there at 17th, 3 points below. You have Suarez sitting there, 5 points below. You could even throw Allmendinger in there at 24 points below. I mean, that right there is crazy. That is so stinking tight for 3 races left that this is going to be the race to watch. You need to watch. So the next few races, especially the next race, because we have a road course. So you have your road course specialist. You have Truex. You have, Larson's been pretty strong. This could be the way Chase Elliott gets in. I'm telling you, he's going to have to get in on a win. And he's got 2 races where he's really strong at that he can get it at. You have Allmendinger, the road course runner in Xfinity. You got him. Ty Gibbs is a good road course racer. So any of those guys win. I mean, you got Ty Gibbs, Chase, and Allmendinger win. You pull them up. I don't put Suarez in that case. McDowell's another good road course racer. He doesn't have, and to my knowledge, I don't even think he has a win in a road course. I could be wrong on that. But he finishes strong, so that's good for him. But, I mean, you have all these guys that are really strong at road courses sitting there at the bottom, and we have 2 road courses left out of the 3 races. So it's going to be fun to watch. You want to be watching for these races. You want to watch, Ty Gibbs, Michael McDowell, Daniel Suarez, AJ Allmendinger. Those are the guys that you're going to want to watch for the next 3 races. You're going to want to watch them. Keep a small eye on Bubba and see what he does. Because, I mean, if he wrecks out, he's 58 points. He gets 2 poor starts, poor finishes. He could be, down lower. Chase Elliott, you can keep a little bit of tabs on him, but he's 55 points below the cut line. I think he's right around with Bubba. So, I mean, if he has some really good ones and Bubba falters, they could swap. But you have a lot of these other guys. Alex Bowman's there. I'm sorry, Austin Cindric. I don't think he's got enough experience or anything like that to get him closer to that cut line. But anyway, keep a look at Bubba Wallace, Ty Gibbs, McDowell, Suarez, and Allmendinger. Those are going to be the guys you're going to want to watch, especially Ty Gibbs, McDowell, Allmendinger for this road course racing. See if one of them can eke out a win. I don't know what's going to happen. So let's go ahead and move into the schedule for Indianapolis. We'll get on that, and then we'll touch on our news that we have here. So Friday, we're going to be in Indianapolis. Now, I say Indianapolis, not the Brickyard, because we're actually splitting. Trucks and ARCA are going to be at the Indianapolis Raceway Park, the Oval, and then you have Cup Series and Xfinity running, with the IndyCar Series. IndyCar Series is going to be running Saturday with them. They're going to be running at the Brickyard on the road course. So let's go ahead and dive into everything here. Friday, we have practice and qualifying on FS1 for the Truck Series, 3:30 and 4:05 Eastern. All times are Easterns. Then we have the Menards Series here, 6 Eastern. That's going to be starting. That'll be on MRN and FS1. And the Truck Series, 9 Eastern, will be on FS1 and MRN. Craftsman Truck Series practice and qualifying will also be televised on FS1 on Friday. Saturday, we go into practice and qualifying for Xfinity. This is a full day at Indianapolis at the Motor Speedway out there where the Brickyard is. So you're talking practice and qualifying for Xfinity starting at 9:35 and 10:05 for qualifying. It will not be televised, but you can find it on NBC Sports Plus if you have that, if you pay for that extra cost. And then you have Cup Series practice and qualifying at 11:35 and 12:35. That's not going to be televised either. That's going to be on NBC Sports Plus. Qualifying will be put on SiriusXM, will be on the Indianapolis radio. So, not MRN, we are Indianapolis Motor Speedway Radio. They have their own radio that Penske kind of put in there. I think it was before Penske, but anyway, moving forward, we have our IndyCar race that's going to be happening after the Cup Series. That's going to be that step, I would say probably 2:30-ish they're going to start. Xfinity starts at 5:30. And let me see if I can find that IndyCar information for you on what they're happening, because it's going to be a full race day on Saturday. So, but anyway, 5:30 Eastern, we have the Indianapolis Road Course that will be streamed on USA. Indianapolis Radio will have that. And then the IndyCar series, let's look at that schedule real quick. We are going to be at sorry for this delay, guys. I'm trying to find out the information, and they don't really make it the best. All right, here we go. 2 Eastern. So 2 o'clock Eastern is going to be the Gallagher Grand Prix, and then we have that. So in between Cup Series qualifying and Xfinity race, you're going to have the IndyCar out there. So there's going to be rubber laid down. There's going to be a lot of rubber on this track for Saturday. See how this handles traction and so on, especially for Xfinity guys, because Cup Series, you're going to have qualifying, so you're not going to have so much from Xfinity. But moving forward, August 13th, that Sunday, at 2:30 Eastern is going to be the Cup Series race. That will be on NBC, streamed on NBC Sports Plus, and Indianapolis Motorsports Radio will be carrying that as well as SiriusXM. SiriusXM covers a lot of this stuff. It seems like NBC is going to NBC Sports Plus to add more information on this thing. It'll be interesting to see. I think you have to have a paid subscription for that. Don't quote me on that. But just, going on with that. So let's go ahead and dive into our news. We'll go ahead and start with kind of the smaller news first. We kind of talked about it, I think, last week. SVG is coming back. He's going to be running this Cup Series race, but he's also going to be running his first oval race at the Indianapolis Raceway Park. So he's going to be running trucks for Spire, and that'll be fun to watch. I think that's going to be good to watch, see how he can handle it, because he's already talking about wanting to come over here and run NASCAR next year, whether it's lower or wherever he can get a ride, he wants to run NASCAR. We know he can handle himself on the road courses, so we'll see what happens, with that. So that's one of the big news out there. Some of the other news coming out, we have Martin Truex Jr. has signed a 1-year extension, or a 1-year contract, if you want to say, to go ahead and run again for Joe Gibbs next year, 2024. He's taking it as a year-by-year basis. So that's kind of good news for him and his fans. And then the big news that came out, and this is where we're going to put our tinfoil hats on, because we're going to dive into some of this stuff, and, we'll go forward with it. Anyway, Noah Gragson was suspended by Legacy Motor Club. NASCAR came around and suspended Noah Gragson indefinitely. We're not even talking. I even totally forgot about one of the other bits of news with the race that happened on Sunday and Monday. But anyway, we're already talking about Noah Gragson. So Noah got suspended indefinitely by NASCAR. The reason he got suspended was from liking a meme, and this part's not clear. I think from what I understand is he liked a meme 3 years ago, and it was a picture of George Floyd's face on a crab, and it said "under the knee." I'm not getting into the politics of that. That's slightly distasteful. People will say it's a lot of distasteful. I'm not going to go into that. We're just going to say that. This is not a political podcast, so we're going to leave it at that. Anyway, he got suspended for that. My question is, if this was done 3 years ago, why is it just now surfacing? Why didn't somebody come out and suspend him when he was with Junior Motorsports running that A car? Why didn't they suspend him then? 9. Why didn't they suspend him? That's my question. If he was there and he had that, this suspension should have gone in the past. So either somebody's digging up dirt on him that they don't like, somebody doesn't like him in the car and they want to get him out quicker than they wanted to, because there's rumors swirling that John Hunter Nemechek's going to be taking the 42 when they swap over to Toyota and they're kicking Gragson out. So is this something where, Jimmy Johnson doesn't like him? This is tinfoil hat speculation, guys. This is not true. I will, pull these ideas out and make you think about it. And, you go on to what you guys formulate your own opinion. I am not formulating an opinion for yourself. I am giving you more information to think about. Did Jimmy Johnson not like him? So they're trying to pull him out quicker. But then another issue that I have with NASCAR, and this is in NASCAR as a whole, and this follows into Kyle Larson, who said a variation of the N-word on iRacing, not even put out for everybody on national television, anything like that. On iRacing, he said a variation of the N-word, and he got suspended indefinitely. Now, we see that he came back, but still, you're indefinitely suspending people for this, and then you're indefinitely suspending people for drugs. So what you're telling me is the personal aspect of somebody is equal to somebody doing drugs where they could kill themselves, they could kill somebody else, they could do any of that nonsense. That is equal to liking a meme. Liking it, not sharing it, saying a variation of a word amongst people. It's not national. This is kind of iRacing. You have to pay for it. You have to get into these things. I don't think this one was broadcasted out there. I could be wrong. But NASCAR needs to come out with some kind of suspend them 50 races. I don't care about that part. But indefinitely and indefinitely, you're lumping these two things into one basket, and I don't think they need the same basket. Are they both bad? Yes, I will not argue that. Do they need the same basket? No. I mean, let's go ahead and get that straight, because you see all these other sports that people say these kind of words and they don't get suspended indefinitely. They get suspended 20, 30 games, whatever. And then or go to MLB. Your first offense, PED stuff, drugs. You get suspended certain games and then you get suspended indefinitely. So anyway, that's my soapbox on that. That was my tinfoil hat. The other thing that I totally forgot about that I want to touch on is Jeff Burton and his comments that he made on Sunday with the rain. As far as I can tell, he was kind of poking at the fact that they have people standing, NASCAR, quote unquote, or they want people standing outside the track knowing what's going on with the rain. And he kind of touched on it. I can't remember. I think it was Daytona. I can't fully remember on what race it was where people hit rain and it spun and hit. I've talked about the New Hampshire incident with Kyle Busch and Martin Truex Jr. These guys on the radio are harping, we have rain. We have rain. You, NASCAR, need to listen to your drivers. This happened again on Sunday. They're sitting there like, oh, they're talking about rain. Oh, and then Jeff Burton comes, they just need a race. They need to stop running. NASCAR has this and that. We have radar. Okay, if one person's complaining about it, sure. But listening to the radio, you had multiple drivers talking about it. You saw it on the cameras, in-car cameras, on the television broadcast. And then you see, or you hear that spotters are talking to NASCAR. Hey, we have rain, because they don't want to wreck a multi-million-dollar car because NASCAR is too hard-headed to pull the red flag and bring them in, because they don't want another race on Monday, because they want to show how good they are. You had a good coming out on Sunday, a strong showing. I think the best one they said since 2015 or something like that. That's great. But you cannot risk these cars and these people's lives by going out there and running in the rain when these vehicles are not set up for the rain. This isn't one of the short tracks with the rain tires and rain package. This isn't a road course with a rain package. And then you go back to look at the torrential downpour at Circuit of the Americas. I was so excited for that first inaugural race at Circuit, and it poured so bad. You had Kurt Busch drift into the sand. You had Michael McDowell slow down, and Truex just rear end him. I mean, because you can't see anything and there's so much water on the track, you go from that extreme to, they barely call for rain. And then now they're not even calling when these guys are saying there's rain. And then you have Jeff Burton out there, and somebody said it, where he's one of these guys that it seems like on some comments that he makes that he doesn't let his brain process everything. He comes out and says it without knowing. I don't know how I stand on that. All I know is Jeff Burton was it sounded irritated about the rain and how people, and then he's sitting there and saying, NASCAR's got people, they're putting people outside the track and blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, you got to do something. You race these cars. You want to run with there's rain on the track? I don't think so. So anyway, that's my soapbox on the NBC broadcasts that I have frustrations with. I have frustrations with that. I remember I had frustrations with Fox. Fox was mostly the booth where Clint Boyer was sitting there trying to tell the guys, hey, look at this, and they cut immediately. And it's like, listen to your broadcaster. You can't sit there and call the race without hearing your broadcasters either. If they're doing that, there's something wrong with that. And, I got a background in directing, not the best, but hey, I have somewhat of a background with directing, and you have to listen to what's going on and adapt. But anyway, let's see what happens this week. We're at Indianapolis, the Raceway Park, and at the Brickyard. Road course racing. We have 3 races left in the series, in the Cup Series and Xfinity races before playoff start. This is the first playoff race for Truck Series, so let's see what goes on from there. And I hope you guys have the great rest of your week, and we'll catch you next week. Thanks a lot.